Good afternoon and welcome to In Our Time. Happy Holi. Hope you guys have recovered fully from the holiday yesterday. This afternoon we have a very interesting program and a more than interesting special guest. We have Dr. Joey Jagan with us, son of the late Chetty Jagan and Janet Jagan, who were both presidents of our beloved nation. And he's joined by, we have our usual SC, we have James Bond, and we also have Narissa here with us this afternoon. Let's get right into our discussion. Dr. Jagan, Halim Majid has written a very interesting book about coalition in the 60s, 70s. I rather suspect you have a very intimate knowledge of that kind of apparatus in our nation. One, having perhaps lived through that era, and you have two parents who were integrally a part of those talks back then. I think this is the closest we've ever had to actually coming to that kind of apparatus. What are your thoughts?
Well, I lived through the bad times, the 60s, and even before that, I remember my father always talking about coalition processes. He always believed in it, but it never happened. They had another type of coalition which fell apart with the PNC and the United Force. But as you said, until this day, there's never been any real coalition process. As I said in my article, in my letter 2 days ago, my father dreamed when he created the Civic of building a coalition process by expanding the Civic and making it bigger. Unfortunately, that has not happened. So, as I said, I welcome the coalition process taking place, and I wish him well. Basically, things happened, and coalition processes were tried. There were talks in '85, there were talks in '40, even the '60s, but they never got anywhere. I guess the times, maybe just the times of when it happened, didn't allow it to happen. But we can't look back forever. We got to look forward.
So, we could say safely that you're endorsing the APNU AFC coalition.
Well, I wouldn't put myself
so far.
to say that.
Okay.
I'm saying I endorse the idea of a coalition. I wish everybody well, and I hope and pray that at the end of the day, they could extend even further. Meaning, I noticed Mr. Granger has committed to saying that if he becomes president, he would bring in people, he might consider bringing people even from the PP side. And I would welcome that, just like I would welcome if Mr. Ramatar wins, to bring people from the APNU and the AFC into his government, which I always push for.
Excellent.
Because I don't believe I feel everybody should have a part. And again, I want to say something. The coalition that has been formed is not really the coalition I envisioned. I appreciate it, I applaud it, but I thought that my concept of coalition is that the churches should be big in it, the union should be big in it. For example, I don't see Mr. Lincoln Lewis, president's big, he should be big. And other union leaders, if we could get them in to such a coalition, and church people, leaders in the church people. I happen to believe that any government should have a religious influence.
And
To
civil
bring a
society
moral,
largely.
true civil society, and religious people should be in a government. I feel so. A lot of politicians feel religion should be out, should be put aside from governance, from politics. I don't believe
Separation
that.
of church
I don't
and state.
believe that because I read. My mentor is the Mahatma Gandhi, and he wrote extensively about that without a religious conscience in a government, you will have corruption.
Excellent. Actually, I think you had a question.
Okay, could you tell me, in your views, what can we expect, the Guyanese people expect from a coalition like this one?
Well, I don't know. I would assume that the Guyanese people could expect what they're saying is the truth, because the truth is what is important. So if what they say is the truth, and we'll find out if they win the election and they do what they said, then that's the truth. If they fail to do it, then people have to make up their mind how to oppose it. Through other coalitions, I guess. I don't know. But I hope that what is said is the truth. and let's deal with the truth once and for all. You know, my father always told me, I always remember my father telling me, and he used Kwame Nkrumah of Ghana as an example. And my father always told me that as a leader or as a party, you should always tell your people the truth. If you don't tell them the truth, when the pressure hits, they mightn't stand up with you. And he always used Nkrumah as an example, that Nkrumah did certain things in Ghana to divorce himself from the people. Certain things. And when he was in China, they had a coup against him. And he was a legitimate president of Ghana. And he was thrown out. He couldn't get back in. And he was a great man. He was a great African leader. And he made those mistakes. So you have to stay true to the people. That's all I would caution anybody who came to government, including any coalition.
You were talking earlier on about why the idea might have failed in the past. And I want to ask if whether you believe that the time is right now, and if your parents were here now, what their own thoughts of this process might have been, and what their own thoughts about the party they have formed might be at this juncture in our history.
Well, that's a big question, but I think that I don't think it would have reached this stage in any case that we have the situation we have now. I feel that my dad was looking to bring more of a coalition process and involve people in the minority into the government, into listening what they're saying and involving them in getting things done in this country. I think he was committed to that. And I feel that the people who took over my father have failed to do that. They failed, and that's why they lost votes. They've lost votes progressively every election. And the failure is right there, you can see it. So if they had followed what my father had said, and which I tried to tell them after the last election, my answer, I told Mr. Ramantar not to give up a day of presidency, to serve your 5 years and bring the opposition into your government. Serve with everybody, work together, since it's a minority, for the next 2 or 3 years, and then hold a free and fair election. Everybody will be judged on what they did in governance. If you brought in the AFC and give them 3 ministries, I mean, proportionate, and gave up new 10 ministries, let me say, or whatever, and they had to perform, then the people would see their performance. And then the people go to the polls in a peaceful way and decide who they want, or what they want, if they want that to continue. But that's what my opinion was, and nobody listened to me. I was campaigning, and I know I'm under a lot of fire for that. I campaigned last time for them. But you know, it was an experience that, as I explained, I was born and bred in the PDP. You know, and the PDP had everybody in it. I saw that. I was just telling Mr. Bond there, James Bond, that in those days, I remember distinctly when my father came out of prison, for example. I'll never forget that at Georgetown. I used to go to a black family and wave to my father. When he came out of prison, it was black people who lifted him in the air and ran out of prison with him. And coming to present day, I read an article, a letter by Mr. Charles Sohan, and I want to compliment him, because he said something very basic. He said if a minibus crashes in an Indian village with black people in it, Indians run and help. And if the opposite happens on a minibus with Indians crash in a black village, everybody runs and help. It's only when elections come, this is what happens. This racialism and demagoguery and lies that are peddled all over the place. So, you know, as I come back to what I'm saying, I feel that the truth needs to be peddled.
Coming back to politics and the ideology that your dad had, such a large ideology by any measure. I know one of your letter in the newspapers yesterday spoke about his economics, and he thought that we can't have a Mercedes-Benz lifestyle in a donkey cart economy. I wanted to ask you a little bit about that and what you see happening locally.
Well, I think that's happening. That has happened under this present government, and they've been criticized wrongly for it. Even within the PDP itself, people are very upset about it. I know that. Because not everybody is sharing in the largesse. The guy, I'll give you an example, and 2 days ago, I met a presidential guard who is working, I won't call the name of the store, in a store as security part-time to make extra money. And I was laughing to myself and my wife, and I was saying, look at the situation. You think a Secret Service agent who guarded Obama will be working as a security guard at Macy's in New York? You understand? That's the level we have gotten. That's the donkey card economy we got. It's a donkey card economy, basically. So you shouldn't be living, as I pointed out, here are people flying away in medevac. As recently as a couple of months, a year ago, Mr. Barr Jagdeo flew in medevac. I had 2 operations here. I have medevac, not through the government, but through myself. I could be flown out to Miami. I had a shoulder breakage and my leg was ruined, wrecked. And I did the surgery at Joshua Hospital, laid down in the bed in the ward. And I had medevac. So how can I do that and they're flying abroad? I don't understand it. So that's the donkey cart economy with the Cadillac Ice lifestyle and my father talked about. You shouldn't be flying abroad because they boast about what a great medical system we have. So do it here. You know, I can understand a few cases where people might have to go abroad, but, you know, and then the bill should be paid. You know, because I understand Mr. Corbyn went abroad and his bill is paid, and that's good. But if you can't do it here, then you gotta go abroad. But I'm sure a lot of things can be done here.
Excellent.
You know.
Excellent. I think James had a question. He's going to be leaving us for another assignment shortly, so we want to hear from James.
Dr. Jagan, let's fast forward a bit.
Yeah.
You, as the presidential candidate of the People's Progressive Party, sir.
Excellent.
Me?
You, taking over from your father, running the affairs of the party. There is a line that they constantly use, 28 years, a year. What will you do? What would you do as the leader of your party to bring about reconciliation in this country?
If I was?
If you were, and
Oh, well.
you never know, you may become the leader of the
I don't-
PPP.
I don't.
I would endorse that.
I don't. But if I had become the leader of the PDP, I would have made sure, number one, there was no corruption. I'd have fired people like Ms. Kamala Vicesar, who's one of my heroes. I like her. And I would have brought in the opposition in my government, for sure. No question about that. I would have brought them and given them important positions and let the people judge their performance. Of course, if they didn't perform, I'd have fired them too, like everybody else, or if they're corrupt. But I would have brought opposition people into my government, a lot of them, for sure. No question with that. Because I feel this is the way forward. I've always felt that. Because I grew up with my father, he believed that. You know,
And we know Burnham was your
yes.
Lyndon Forbes Sampson was your godfather. Could you say something about your relationship with them?
Well, you know, my relationship, you know, because of the trauma of the times and so was strained, I guess, because I was a child and, you know, the problems. But basically, Mr. Burnham bailed me out of jail in Sir George in 1969 when we were all arrested. Paid a lot of money, $10,000. I was acquitted, found guilty of a misdemeanor, and the government again got back the money. And many occasions I interacted with Mr. Burnham.
You told me you called him Bunks, now you laugh.
Yeah, well, as a little boy, I recall that. Him bouncing in his lap and Mr. Yussi Kawana riding me around on his back. I remember those things. And Mr. Burnham was, I always admired Mr. Burnham, and I still do. And, you know, this is what I want to say, too, to everybody, that whether you like a president or not, or he did what you might think is bad, he was still the president. And we have to respect that, you know, that whoever was our president is still our president, was our president, and we should give them due regard, you know. And that's why I tend to want to move on. We had 28 years and then 22 years, and both had problems, serious problems, but it's time to move on.
So you would not be you would not go with that mantra 28 years ago, 28 years
No,
ago.
I don't go down with that mantra at all. I mean, I recognize that things were not done exactly the way they should have done, and a lot of things were wrong, but it's time to move on, you know. And the same applies if Mr. Granger gets in. It's time to move on. You know, if he becomes the president again.
No mention of the 22 years.
Yeah, you're right. He needs to move on because we have to think of our young people and our kids. That is the most important thing now. They're in trouble. We need to fix their problems and move ahead. We need a good university for them. I see the university here is in big trouble. We need better health care for them, better schooling, and better future. You know, we need I remember when I was growing up, we had lunches in school every day.
And
Things
good
like
lunches.
that. Yeah, and good lunches. So, under the white man. And the white man ran Guyana. So we need to get back to those days and not only talk about building our university, but building the whole primary school system up.
Mr.
and make it
Dragon, I'm a
better.
teacher.
Oh, okay.
I'm longing to see that.
Right.
I'm longing to see kids having lunch at school, even breakfast.
Right.
Because being a teacher, it's hard to
Right.
see your children coming to school and hungry. Miss, can I eat some food?
Right.
Or Miss, can you share the biscuit? You know? They long to see
Right.
these things. Sometimes I would even give them my lunch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there are lots of instances where the lunch that's coming from the school systems is perhaps the only
Yes.
food they're gonna
Yes, yeah.
they're gonna engage for the entire day.
And this
so we wanna make
biscuit
sure
and
that's
juice
quality.
thing isn't enough.
Right. But I remember we
Sad.
used to get good stuff. And not only that, they need to fix all the facilities. I understand the facilities, the toilet facilities are not the best.
Yeah. Yeah.
So all those things need to be fixed. And I remember in the old days, they even had launches that carried children to school along the rivers and carried old people to the infirmary. I remember that. So we need all those things back. It's a shame that a person may sit down, and I know that my father was an anti-colonial fighter, and Mr. Burnham and all them wanted to get the white man out. But when you sit down and think about it, when the white man is here, things are better in a lot of ways. I'm not endorsing colonialism or slavery, but I'm just saying that in those days, I'll give you an example then. Every month, I remember a group of people used to come down our road, and they had a mule and a roller, and they used to put fresh tar in every road in Georgetown. Every road was smooth. All the gutters, I used to swim in the gutters when rain fell. The water would be running through the gutters. So those are things we need. We need to get them back.
Excellent.
Look at our city. That alone is a condemnation of this government. That alone, just the city. They should be ashamed of how they got our city.
Well,
And to
let's
sit down and blame it in the city council is ridiculous.
let's take a break here, and when we come back, we'll talk a little more about that, and we'll talk a little more about how do we engage our young people in this process. James is going to be leaving us for a little bit. When we come back, we'll talk a little more with Dr. Jagan. Thank you.
I am excited about the future for my country. I'm happy to see that we can set aside our differences, set aside the past, and work together for a better Guyana. Let's move forward together. I am excited about the future for my country.
Vote APNU AFC.
I am committed to national unity. But that unity cannot take place if some people are discriminated against and other people are given advantages. That unity cannot take place when we have 7,000 children of any ethnicity dropping out of school. That unity cannot take place when some children are arriving at school after good breakfast, good transport, and other children are walking on laterite barefooted and don't have food to eat. We can't concentrate. Let us have a day for all Guyanese children when we celebrate our unity, when we celebrate our brotherhood, when we celebrate our ability to deal with each other as equals. And that day has not come as yet. And what we're talking about, what we're meeting here today about, is about bringing about change. Not for ourselves, but for 250,000 Guyanese who depend on you to give them a good life. Thank you very much and congratulations.
This is our time.
Welcome back to In Our Time, and we're chatting still with Dr. Joey Jagan, who is offering us lots of insight, his thoughts on coalition politics, about youth, about government. And Essie has a question she wants to fire off.
Okay, Dr. Jagan, you spoke about coalition politics in the New World Order in your letter. Could you explain a little bit more about that for me?
Yeah, well, I mean, a lot of people bandy around the word New World Order. I've heard of George Bush said it, Chetty Jago, my father, talked about a Hubble Global World Order. I kind of have a historical political mind, so I'm just saying that coalition politics is the New World Order because if you look around the world, look at Germany, look at England, Cameron came to power in a coalition, Merkel came. If you look at what's happening right now in Yemen, there's a coalition process taking place now. People
Our
are
neighbors,
meeting.
our very neighbors too.
Yeah, well, Trinidad, Suriname, right. So what I meant is the New World Order in the third world, basically, which is the majority of the world. I think it is the New World Order in the sense that people have realized that fighting each other ain't getting nowhere. Some of them even goes as far as murdering children, getting little children to fight in certain parts of the world, and that is not the answer. I think leaders are realizing that and moving to coalition politics, which brings people together from different diversities and different political backgrounds into one common cause. I'm sure like this coalition now with APNU and AFC, I'm sure AFC didn't get everything they wanted in terms of political agenda, and neither did APNU. They had to compromise to reach a situation where they could work together, and that is what is prevalent in the world. So I just said that in a way. I wasn't trying to be philosophical. I was just trying to be practical in the sense that it is the New World Order. That's what is happening. It's good for the world. Anything that is a New World Order should be good for the world. So that's all I meant. All within a democratic process.
How in your view do we engage our young people in this practical New World Order? And especially local politics. We know our young people are the largest portion of the voting bloc. How do we engage them meaningfully?
Well, I guess you have to do it by action, and words. The trouble is, we've been so divided culturally in a lot of ways, economically in a lot of ways. So it's an easy fight. It is an easy fight to bring about the idea that young people should work together. But I guess they have to learn it from the older people, from the people who are the leaders. And that's why it's a welcome sign that these two parties have joined together, and maybe it'll inspire young people to to get involved and go out and vote, for changes if they perceive it. Whatever they perceive a change. I mean, right now, Mr. Ramatar and the PP are saying they're the avenue of change. This is what they're claiming, So it depends on how people see it.
Do you safely think that after 22 years that they can push that they're actually changed, they can use that? And the other question I want to put with that, the civic aspect of the PPP, is it functional? Is it functioning?
No. Well, the first question is after 22 years. Yeah, I mean, politics is about the manipulation of words. So politics
Reinvention.
is. Yeah. So I guess they could claim anything they want. And the second thing is, no, there's no civic. That is a deception. There's no civic. The civic is dead. As a matter of fact, in the last election, I'll just show you why. In the last election, I ran with them, as you know. I was denied membership in the PPP. The son of Chetty Jago was denied membership in the PPP. They won't give me back my party card, which I had given up in 1997. 98, I had resigned when I resigned from Parliament. They wouldn't give me back my party card, so I said, well, then I'm civic. If you look at my speeches during the last election, you see I said over and over that I'm civic. After the election, I kept asking when will there be a civic meeting. To this day, there never been a meeting. Never one meeting, they never invited a meeting. There was no civic meeting. So where is the civic? There's no civic. So it's a one-party majoritarian concept that the PPP has become. My father created the civic to expand it. As I said in my letter, Sam Hinds failed miserably. He was supposed to be the one who expanded it. He was the leader of the civic. He did nothing. So that's where we are today. So what we have is a clear option to the voters. You have a coalition process on one side, and you have on the other side people who believe in majority rule. as far as I'm concerned, philosophically, I do not support majoritarian rule. I do not. The other side of the story is that nobody knows what will happen there. You know, so people have to take, as I told in another interview I did, the youth have to be smart, examine everything. Like my father always told me, when you face with a problem, when you face with any problem in your life, get a piece of paper, draw a line, write on one side the positives, write on the other side the negatives. If the positive outweigh the negatives, go and vote for that person. If the negative, you understand? That's how he told me. So young people do that. Sit down and write down what you think you've gotten or what you think you'll get. And that's it, then go to vote. Don't vote because you're Indian or you're black or you're Chinese or Armenian. Go and vote as to what you think is clear cut now. There's two parties running. It's for you to make up your mind.
Talking about
But go and vote.
Talking about youths, how do you think they're involved in politics today in the country? How much?
Well, I think they're involved, but you see, it's like everything else. Involvement, anybody who gets involved in anything, from the scientist who thinks he's discovered something, to the regular guy who's a shoe cobbler, everybody wants to see advancement up a ladder. That's human nature.
Yes.
Going up a ladder, whether it's financial or just self-satisfaction or self-aggrandizement, the word? Aggrandizement. So the problem I have with the young people moving up in the political structure is that the parties in existence got a bunch of old people on top. They're not creating space for young people. So when young people trying to come up, they get pushed down. Their voice can't be heard. You understand?
Yes.
I'll give you an example then. Because I only know about the PVP. This is where I was. I was at Navin Chandrapal's funeral, God bless his heart. And a PYO person, a young person who's in the PYO, was starting to complain about how the PPP leadership don't allow them to do what they're supposed to do as a PYO. They keep them down on certain things. And this has been going on for years. So I don't know if the same thing is happening on the other side, but that got to stop. This is why I said that it'll be very helpful to the voters out there and for support to come to Mr. Granger and Mr. Magamutu if they can indicate to the people that maybe since their age is what it is, that they might just serve a term and hand it over to younger people from their protected parties to run the country properly. It would help them in this election, I feel so.
But I really love the idea of creating space for our youth.
Yeah.
And I love the idea of coming away from racial politics, which your father didn't think about.
No, right.
And I wanted to ask, how do we do that more, especially the second bit? How do we come away from racial politics? Some persons are saying that the AFC wouldn't get the Indian vote because they've joined with APNU. How do we come away from that kind of thinking, where we start to think about policy, about health, where you are an expert, and dentistry more so? How do we start to think more about policy in education and those kinds of issues, as against just seeing race? I'm voting for the PPP because of race, or I'm voting for APNU because of race.
Well, I don't know how to answer the question. It's a hard question. And that's why I feel the only way to answer, you see, I'm an American, to tell you the truth. And in America, there are a lot of problems, in the country. You read about Ferguson, you read about it, and there are problems. But the basic thing with America that I've learned is that you're going to have a Jamaican living in this house, a Polish person living there, a Ukrainian living in the next house, an East Indian living in and all of them live well. There's no problems, basically. Sure, you got a little Ferguson, you got this and that, but basically all of them live in harmony. So one of the things that I feel that would solve the racial problem here is wealth, the creation of wealth. If people are better off, they don't have those racial feelings as much as they might do if they're poorer, right? Because people can manipulate them. Whereas if the country is doing, but that's why to work this country right, we need to get together, the political parties, to run this country. I don't think, as I was telling Mr. Bond just now, if we had an Obama around here, we'd see hope. There's no Obama around. You understand? We need an Obama. You understand? But so, in the meantime, since we don't have no Obama, we just want out there somewhere, a young person who will be Obama. Because nobody knew what Obama, look at him now. So, in the meantime, that's why I believe in coalition process, to stop this racial kind of thing. And, like, for example, I feel, I was telling Mr. Ramatar, maybe you could work a deal where you bring them in and postpone elections for 10 years. No elections, just them work together for 10 years. You know, because elections bring racial feelings in this country. Every election rises up the racialism. In the meantime, now, between elections, the Africans going to run and save the Indians in the bus, and the Indians going to run and save the Africans in the bus. They're living together in peace. But when elections come, it's the same old story. Be gone again.
And there's some truth in that, because yesterday was Pagua.
Right.
I had some friends of mine come and pick me up from home. They're black Negroes, and the people who they were following were some Chinese folks who,
Right.
you know, and we were all playing Pagua.
Right.
Right. And then we went, picked up some Indian folks,
Right.
and we were, where's the politics there?
Right.
Where's the race there?
Right.
Right? That to me is the essence of our country. But then we have this thing that keeps raising its head every 5 years, and we haven't found a real way to solve that. And I'm wondering if some of that might be able to be solved constitutionally, if we can say to our constitution that we don't have to have these alliances as they were before we go into an election, but they can be done after. If that's one way in which you force people to work together, if that might be one way.
Well, you know, everybody's talking about constitutional reform, and I happen to believe in it, and I feel we need constitutional reform, but we need, you know, we need an example for somewhere to bring about constitutional reform. We need, because our constitution, as far as I'm concerned, is all messed up. I don't agree with it. I think it's messed up. I think this whole idea of executive president is ridiculous. We should have more of a prime ministerial with the way it was before. But that's all, you know, for people to work out. But, you know, I feel that whatever constitutional arrangements we make, the bottom line is we must take care of our young people. That is a paramount thing today. And the only way to do that is to create wealth. You have to create wealth and create it quickly. So, you know, I urge all the politicians trying to work together to bring that about the best way they could without strife.
Do you think it's more of wealth creation as against management? Because everybody knows we have a rich country.
Yeah.
We have so many minerals.
Well,
and
management too. That's a part of
as well.
wealth creation. Management. You know, for example, I believe we should have a ministry of marketing to market our products and bring markets from abroad here. Just a ministry of marketing. You know, things like that. But that's for the politicians who might run the country to decide, you know, what they want to do.
In talking about the APNU and AFC bonding, you mentioned a couple of things, and I wanted to ask, what do you think is needed more? They've outlined several things they want to do over a certain period of time. If you had the chance to look at that construct that they're aiming at, how would you build it wider? How would you change that?
Well, I mean, they're the experts. You know, Mr. The finance man.
Greenwich.
Mr. Greenwich. I'm sure he would have ideas on how to better the economy if they get it, if they win the election. Now, I assume Mr. Greenwich should be the finance minister. I've read things in Mr. Greenwich, speeches he made since the 90s, late 80s, the 90s. I remember a speech he made in Islamabad, Pakistan, a very good speech, a very good presentation. We used to start with foreign investment and trade. So I think they have able people. It's just that I feel that in order to bring about a transformation of our economy, a real transformation, we need to involve everybody. You know, I think everybody needs to be involved. And I hope, as I said, whoever wins this election could involve the minority also, the people who lost. into developing this country. It's about time, that somebody does that. We don't just want a coalition. We want more than that. Okay, you got a coalition, now do more than that too. Involve people on the outside of that, to develop this country. I always tell people, for example, look at the brains we have abroad. We have a lot of Guyanese who could serve this country, and they're abroad. And if we entice them to come back, we could benefit from it a great deal. And pave the way for people to come back here with their families.
Let's take a break here, and when we come back, we'll talk a little bit about what does our country post May 11 look like. The AFC new partnership, have some goals that they're looking at, some short-term goals, and we're going to ask Dr. Jagan what his own short-term goals might be. Let's say the first 90 days, as soon as we come back. Thank you.
I am excited about the future for my country. I'm happy to see that we can set aside our differences, set aside the past, and work together for a better Guyana. Let's move forward together. I am excited about the future for my country.
Vote APNU AFC.
We have started a movement of what they call ECIS, every child in school. And I went to the Glory Light Tabernacle last August the 1st, and I said, adopt that slogan. Every 31st of July, give an account. I went to Buxton Line Top. Dion would remember. Not an exciting presentation, not an inspiring presentation. But they say 1st of August is African New Year's Day. I said 365 days from now, ask yourselves whether there were any children out of school in your street and whether you were able to help that child to get to school. Give those childs shoes or uniform. Give that child breakfast. Help that child with transport, or buy a school book for that child to make sure that child gets to school. ECIS, every child in school. So we can solve these problems. International Year for People of African Descent wouldn't solve the problem of the child next door who can't get to school. And cash grant wouldn't solve the problem either. You get $10,000. Today is what? 24th? Wouldn't meet February. Tomorrow I'm going to Pomeroon. And there are people in the Pomeroon who spend $5,000 a week to get their child to the charity secondary school. Keep the $10,000, buy a school boat. And that school boat will take the children up and down the Pomeroon, whole year. The children on the highway can't afford to go to school at Tuesday. There are people even living in Campbellville, can't go to Graham's Hall. They go to school 2 days a week because they can't afford the minibus fare 5 days a week. For your children go to school every day. Oh man, when I don't talk, you can talk. That's right. Talk, you talk. All I'm saying, we have to accept the responsibility for our children. But the point is, we have to accept responsibility. When you bring that child into the world, you have to ensure that that child not only receives care and food and clothing, but that child could get to school, that child could graduate.
This is our time.
Welcome back to In Our Time. We're talking with our very special guest, Dr. Joey Jagan, and we were asking him about what he thinks the first 90 days post May 11th should look like. What are some of the plans and programs immediately upon taking government the government should be looking at?
Well,
any new government.
Yeah. Well, I would assume that the first thing they should concentrate on is holding local elections.
Local government elections.
We need local elections. They're long overdue, and we need them. That's a part of the democratic process.
Excellent.
an important part. And I would assume that they would try to look at a lot of the deals that are going on that might be under the books, you know, under the radar. Certain things that are going on. I guess you'd want to reconstruct the whole government and go through and find, you know, corruption, things like that. Clean out the government of whatever influence it might have, or that you don't agree with if you're a new government. And I would assume that they would start to consult each other on constitutional changes, which they promise, you know, and then, of course, relieving the sufferings of people immediately, whoever needs it, you know, right away, you know, people, flood victim, whatever, you know, and get the country going in the right direction. That's my opinion, you know. And of course, one of the things that I'm concerned about is our relationship with the United States. We need to better our relationship with the United States, especially with Mr. Obama as the president. We need very strong and firm relationship with the United States. There are dangers around us. There are things happening around us in neighboring countries that we have to be careful of, especially Venezuela. Things could spill over for Venezuela to affect us here. We need to take a position which is what Obama has.
Excellent. I see. Right.
All right. Let's just go back a little bit. We're still on this youth thing. We have some youths who are willing to come forward and talk and air their views, but because they're working in a government office, they're denied that right. They're afraid of victimization, and we're supposed to have a country that we could we have our democratic right to air our views. What can be done about
Are
that?
those fears justified? Victimization, is it a justified fear, or people just?
Well, I won't know about that completely, but I would assume there's certain levels of victimization, especially, you know, I mean, you know, this is a third world country, and
a small country.
yeah, and you know, I guess that would happen. Things like that do happen. You know, people get annoyed that people speak out, but that's not right. You know, we need to strive to be a country where anybody can get up and say what they want, basically. You know, unless you are talking about insurrection and armed violence, that's different, or racial things. But basically, a man should be able to get up in this country anywhere and say what he feels. You know, that's the essence of democracy. And again, you know, we don't have to invent the wheel. It's right in America. That's what democracy is. Living and breathing well. And we just got to stay close to America and follow America. That's what I say. Anybody who diverts from that will fail Guyana.
Excellent. The nation has a very strong philosophy, and the rest question deals with that a little bit and talking about your dad.
Yes, I would like to know, what do you think of the current situation, the current administration of PPP? Do you think they're carrying out your father's legacy, his wishes, what he wanted?
No, I don't think so. As I said, I was willing to give him the benefit of the doubt the last election. Mr. Donald Ramatar approached me and told me that you can bring change and reform. And I don't see it. Sorry. As again, NCN is a classic example. What happened at NCN with Mr. Sattar and Mr. Golsaran. And I feel they should be before the courts. And I don't go along with that. As I told you before, Ms. Carmen Becerra is one of my heroes in the Caribbean. I think she's the best leader in the Caribbean. And if it was Ms. Carmen Becerra, they'd have been before the courts long ago, including others. So there's a lot of controversies, a lot of people claiming corruption, not because somebody claims corruption, there's corruption. Corruption got to be weeded out and proven. Yes. But I don't see that happening. In terms of, as I said, the Cadillac lifestyle in the donkey cart economy that my father believed in, that is still happening with some of these people. Right. I mean, if you just look at the bureaucracy of the government alone, my father was against it. My father had 14 ministers, and me and him used to talk about it. I used to live at State House, so we used to talk about reducing it Because when he was the prime minister back in the 60s, there were 6 ministers that ran this country. My mother was Minister of Labor, Health, and Housing. Why do we have 3 separate ministries today? I don't understand. So what this government has done is create, against my father's wishes, 25 ministries. The problem is whether the opposition, if they take control, gonna heed that and reduce the ministries back to where it's supposed to be. Who knows? Nobody knows. They can only say nobody knows. Because I don't feel that this country needs 25 ministers or 20 ministers. I don't understand it. Barack Obama is running America with 9 ministers, a big, powerful, rich country like that. So why do we have 20 ministers? So what it is bureaucracy, money taken away from our kids. Every time you cut and turn, it's money taken away from our youth and our kids. We don't want that no more. So all those who campaigning for the opposition, if they win, and they don't want to cut the ministries, then something wrong. They should be cutting ministries too, chopping them down, not giving friends and family or whatever has been happening.
One of the things
You understand what I'm saying? So we need to trim the bureaucracy we have here. It'll save us a lot of money. This is what Jagan believe in. Jagan talk with lean, mean, and clean government.
That is what I want to get
Right.
at, because one of the things he spoke about is the exorbitant salaries and the exorbitant lifestyle,
Right.
and the mansions that people live in,
Right.
while the ordinary man is struggling to get by.
Right.
How do we change that? How do we change that? One of the things that is very stark in my mind, there are professors at university who are walking, right? And I saw at one of the council meeting a council member who is from the government, the luxury vehicle, that brought the council member there, there's just this unevenness in terms of wealth in our nation. How do we kind of bring some kind of balance or a proper wealth distribution? How do we
Well,
get
that always concerned Chetty Jagan. I could tell you that. My father, he always railed against that. But you see, I have a different view. I feel that one of the things is, when you criticize, you have to also look at the rich. The rich here are doing no philanthropy. They don't give nothing back. They don't even pay taxes right. So all they got to change, right? The rich must have a conscience. They're making their money in a society like this. They must give back to the society. The University of Ghana should have a lot of endowments from the rich here.
That's what
to
here
build
is-
up, right.
is really
We
showing.
don't have
Yeah.
that. We don't have that happen. Look at Carnegie, who died in 1918, left his whole wealth to the people of America. Rockefeller, who people cuss out, you know how much money he gave? Bill Gates, you know how much he's given back to America and to people all over the world. Bill Gates is right now involved in making a toilet that uses the water. The water uses the flush, you could drink it after. And it's worldwide, and it's very cheap. So people who don't have a toilet could get one now. You understand? So what I'm saying is there's no philanthropy here. And that's because everybody in this country, a lot of people in this country feel like an island. They're just out to satisfy their own needs because the whole political framework we have is not working. It has collapsed on us. That's why the bickering and the trouble, and that's why the latest poll showed that Guyanese people think the worst calamity facing us is politics and the politicians. You understand? So we got to find a way to change all these things. As you know, so anybody who talks about change, just uses the word change, bring the change, right? So, I coming back to what you asked me, I feel that is the failure of the leadership of the PDP today, that they didn't follow what Jagan set out. If they'd followed what Jagan set out, they could have never been defeated at the polls. Nobody could have defeated them at the polls. It's impossible. But the reason they're vulnerable at the polls is because they didn't follow what Jagan says. Now they're going about saying they carry the legacy of Jagan. But if they'd carried out the legacy of Jagan, it wouldn't be any problems they have today. How did they lose Moses? Look at Moses Nakamoto, a loyalist to Jagan. Ralph Ramkran, a loyalist to Jagan. Kamraj Ramdajan, a loyalist to Jagan. Where are they? They should have never been allowed to leave the PPP. No matter what. Me. Well, I left before all of them.
You sort
I
of
joined the
train
PEP.
flowing.
You know, people might know, I joined the PEP for 8 months, and I resigned from the PEP and Parliament in 1998. 8 months is the only time I ever joined the PEP. 8 months. I left before all of them. Nobody had left yet. I got, if you go back and check, when I left, I issued statements talking about all the things I'm talking about here. Shared governance and all those things. Back in 98.
Do you think the PPP, that idealistic and ideologue of a party that your father was so much a part of and the life of, do you think that party is dead and what we have now is something else completely?
No, I won't go so far to say it's dead, because there's a lot of people at the grassroots that I saw in the last campaign who believe in the PV and believe in the CUP. And they go out and vote for the CUP. And there's a lot of people who believe in it because of the influence of Jackman, of my father. They respect and love him so much that it's still there. And you know, politics is a devilish game, you know, and
It is.
politicians are going to use that to foster themselves and keep themselves in power. That's what they're doing. Tomorrow there's a big thing at Babujan, and Mr. Jagdi will be speaking, and Mr. Ramatar. And they're going to talk about Jagan, and then turn around and use that to attack the opposition.
Yes.
That's how they operate.
But your sister had made some very strong comments against the government there a couple of years back, talking about some of the same issues we're talking about now. Is it fair to the legacy of your father, of your parents, and that kind of thing? Is that I would say every 5 years, they cart out a picture or something like that, and they talk about the dreams
Right.
of Chenny Jagan and fighting for the working class. You think that's fair? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, they have the monopoly in it, so they're going to use it, you know. But, you know, I try to tell people, you know, after 15 years, and I want people to listen to this carefully, after 15 years of my father's dying, Chetty Jagan don't belong to the PP anymore. Chetty Jagan belongs to the Guyanese nation. And people must understand that. It's just like Mahatma Gandhi. Mahatma Gandhi was the brain, the founder, the nurturer of the Congress Party of India. And after he died, and the corruption and nepotism set in the Congress Party, people don't associate Mahatma Gandhi with the Congress Party, but they associate Mahatma Gandhi with India.
Yes.
You understand? He's India.
Yes.
A living land. That's what Jagan and Burnham and those people are. They belong to Guyana. No, Rodney and all them. Hubert Nathaniel Christian, they're Guyana. They belong to all of us. So the PP trying to hold on to Jagan as if Jagan belonged to just the PP, I think is wrong. Yeah, okay, the first couple of years you could have done that, but now Jagan is entering the area of immortality among Guyanese. You know, I meet Guyanese all the time, black Guyanese in particular, who love my father, who always talk good of him. So, you know, I just want people to understand that. The PP has no monopoly in Jagan. Not anymore.
And really and truly, he's a larger life figure
Right.
than just one party. And I would hazard to say, well, not even hazard, that there is something from Dr. Jagan's life that we can all look at and try to emulate. His humility.
Yes.
I tell people any day, see where he lived, and that can tell you the quality of the man in comparison to where some other ministers live.
Yeah.
That can tell you, the character of the man. So I think at every level in our nation that there is something that you can look at his life and take for you personally, and see how you can build from that point.
Yeah, my father, I could tell you, my father never believed in living big. He could have been the richest man Guyana ever had if he had wanted to be. If he had chosen to be the richest man Guyana ever had, he could have been that. But I could tell anybody, when my father died, he didn't have nothing. Nothing. Not a thing to leave to anybody. Nothing. Right? When I was in dental school, when I was in undergrad in California, my father had nothing to give me. He just didn't. But I understood. I saw how he lived. You know, at one time, the 80s and early 80s and 70s, my father and I were living on very little. You know, I remember I used to come home and quarrel with them with the eating. My father used to take mangoes and apple, bananas, and the rotten part, he cut it out and still eat the rest of it. That's what he did.
Nothing must be wasted.
No, nothing must be
I
wasted.
remember as part of your letter yesterday, you said that when he was sick and was going to be medevaced, Dr. Lunchin asked who's going to pay
Yes.
for it, and you said you made a response. I'm tempted to ask what a
No,
response.
I can't repeat what I told him.
What a response was.
I can't repeat that. You know, but I remember that distinctly when he said that. And as I said in my letter, I find it strange everybody medevacing out here now, and they're asking who's going to pay for it. In any case, the government again never paid for it, because President Clinton sent that plane for my father. And all the expenses of Walter Reed was paid by the American government. I don't think the guy in the government even offered to pay. I wonder if they did. There'd be some good research to find out that. You know, but as I said, you know, I feel that those who have taken my father's party have taken it in the wrong direction. And I thought that in the last election that that'd be corrected by Mr. Ramatar. And that proved to be wrong, an illusion on my part. And that's why I've opened up my mouth and said what I feel. And that's it.
But I think a large number of Guyanese feel the same way, because I think personally that Mr. Ramatar had a golden opportunity, having taken the reins of the party, to have done something very historic with his tenure.
Yeah, especially after a minority situation.
Yes, he could
When
have really
losing the
brought,
election.
Yes, he could have brought
Yeah,
a
he
lot
could
of
have done all that.
persons on board and really did something great.
I was the only one who was urging him that.
I want to leave you, as we come down to the end of our program, with the final thoughts. What are your thoughts for our nation as we approach another election? And what are your thoughts going into the future? How do we change our nation? How do we engage people beyond politics? How do we engage our young people? And how do we really grow this nation in a meaningful way that everybody feels an equal part and parcel of what is happening, and have an equal bite of the Guyanese pie?
Well, the first thing I feel is a matter of urgency. And the reason I say that is because I see the growing of our nation to be directly proportional to our relationship with the United States of America. And we have a unique opportunity, any new government to get in. Obama has 2 more years, and we need to get in them 2 years and do the best we can with Obama and government. Because Obama will be very sympathetic towards Guyana. I know that. And Congress too. And we need to concentrate on America, developing our relationship tight with America and CARICOM. You know, when people talk about South, I believe in CARICOM. CARICOM should be a powerful body, but hooked in to the North. And I think that if CARICOM is hesitating, we got to make the move first, right? And I feel we got an excellent opportunity with Mr. Obama there. You don't know what the next president will be. With Mr. Obama there, we could get a lot done in them 2 years. Mr. Obama will be very amenable to helping Guyana. He's sending a new ambassador now. We should be nice to him and treat him good, not the way we treated the last one.
No more fair blacks. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your time and allowing us into your home and into your families. Thank you to our very special guests and our very lovely ladies. See you very soon.